I thought I knew what love was. I had a solid life with my wife, Sarah, and we were raising our son, Jason, together. Our days were filled with work, school runs, and basketball tournaments almost every weekend. Jason was a good kid and he loved the game. As a father, I felt proud watching him grow, especially when he was out on that court, giving it his all. But looking back, those weekends would be the beginning of the end for me. Sarah and I had been married for over a decade, and like any relationship, there were ups and downs. Lately, I noticed a subtle shift in her demeanor. She started coming home late from the tournaments, often with excuses about helping clean up or planning team events. A few times, I even noticed her texting discreetly, her face lighting up in a way that felt different from when she was communicating with me. I brushed it off initially. After all, we were busy parents, and perhaps she was just trying to be a good teammate. But my gut was beginning to twist with unease. One Sunday, after a particularly grueling tournament where Jason's team barely scraped through, I overheard some parents talking. I was gathering our stuff, preparing to head home, when I caught snippets of their conversation. Words like coach and Sarah floated through the air. I paused, feeling a cold rush of dread wash over me. I would later learn that the team's coach, Kyle, had become quite friendly with Sarah, but I didn't know the depths of their relationship yet. The first real crack in our marriage appeared a few weeks later. I was at home one evening, scrolling through social media, when I stumbled upon a photo of Sarah at a local bar, arms draped around Kyle, both of them laughing, looking far too cozy. The caption was innocent enough, something about team bonding, but the look in their eyes told a different story. My heart dropped into my stomach. I couldn't ignore the signs any longer. My mind raced as I tried to piece it all together. That night, I confronted her. I could barely contain my anger and hurt. I asked her flat out about Kyle, about the late nights, and about the chemistry I was clearly witnessing. I expected her to deny it, to reassure me that everything was fine, but she just stood there. I could see her weighing her words, her mind working through excuses. "Oh, please, you're being ridiculous," she said, rolling her eyes as if I were being the unreasonable one. "I'm just trying to support the team. You know how invested we all are." The nonchalance in her tone made my blood boil. I pressed further, demanding to know if there was something going on. She finally fell back on the most traditional line in the book. "You're overreacting. You're just jealous." Jealous. My world was collapsing, and she called it jealousy. I could hardly breathe through the whirlwind of emotions flooding me. There was confusion, betrayal, and an overwhelming sense of sadness. I felt like a fool, like I had been blind all this time. As the days turned into weeks, I tried to piece myself together. It was a constant battle. I felt angry and betrayed, yet I still loved her. I had invested so much into our life together. The images of Sarah and Kyle kept replaying in my mind, and I couldn't shake the feeling of being utterly betrayed by the one person I had trusted most in my life. I oscillated between rage and disbelief, with each day feeling heavier than the last. I needed to gather evidence to confront her properly, to catch her in the act of her lies, or to at least find out what was really going on. I decided to dig deeper, to gather information that would either prove my worst fears or show me that I was simply being paranoid. And so began my journey into the depths of betrayal. That was when the intrigue set in. As I started to connect the dots, I realized that I wasn't just fighting against my wife. I was fighting against the man she had chosen over me. The person who had wormed his way into our lives, who should have been a mentor to our son, was now a rival. The emotional impact was profound. I felt like a stranger in my own home, in my own life. And that's when I began to plan my revenge. I wanted to expose her, to show her the reality of what she had done. I wanted her to feel the betrayal I felt. I wanted to bring everything hidden into the light. I didn't know how it would all unfold yet, but I was determined to take action. In my heart, I knew I couldn't let this go unpunished. As the days passed, I became more and more obsessed with uncovering the truth. I started to pay closer attention to Sarah's schedule, taking notes of her comings and goings. I was like a detective on a case, piecing together the puzzle that was my marriage. The late-night phone calls, the whispered conversations, the way she suddenly had events to attend without me. They all pointed to something much deeper than I had originally thought. One evening, after dropping Jason off at basketball practice, I decided to swing by the gym to see if Sarah was there. It was a normal night for practice, or at least it should have been. As I pulled into the parking lot, I felt my heart racing. Part of me was terrified of what I might find, but another part of me was ready to confront whatever was happening. Through the glass windows, I could see the court filled with kids practicing drills, but my eyes were drawn to one corner of the gym where Sarah and Kyle were huddled together, laughing. It was casual, as if they were sharing an inside joke. The way she leaned into him, the way he brushed a stray hair from her face, it felt like a punch to the gut. My heart sank, and for the first time I seriously considered that I could be losing more than just my wife. I could be losing the very fabric of my family. The following weekend, I got my first concrete evidence. I was out with a friend, grabbing a drink, when I accidentally overheard a couple of parents talking about the tournament. They mentioned seeing Sarah and Kyle together at a hotel after the last game. My blood ran cold. They had been spending time together outside of practice, and it wasn't innocent at all. I could feel the rage bubbling inside me. I was no longer just a husband. I was now a man wronged, and I needed to reclaim my dignity. I decided it was time to confront Sarah again. I gathered my thoughts, rehearsed my lines, and waited for her to come home. When she walked through the door that evening, I could tell she was in a good mood. She had that smug smile on her face, the one she always wore after spending time with him. My heart raced as I called her out. "Sarah, we need to talk," I said, my voice steady but filled with barely contained anger. "About what?" she replied, her eyes narrowing as she dropped her purse on the kitchen counter. "I've had a long day. I heard some things from the other parents about you and Kyle. I saw you with him at the gym. What's going on?" I pressed, standing my ground, determined not to let her brush me off this time. She blinked at me, her expression shifting from surprise to annoyance. "You're seriously going to believe gossip? People love to talk, you know that. It's just ridiculous." "Ridiculous? You think it's ridiculous? I have seen you flirting with him, Sarah. I know what it looks like when a marriage is falling apart and you're treating this like it's nothing." I felt my voice rising, but I couldn't help it. The frustration was boiling over. As I pushed her for answers, she went through a series of excuses. It was harmless fun. Kyle was just being friendly. She was trying to make Jason's team the best it could be. Each lie felt like a slap in the face, and I found myself growing angrier by the minute. "You're lying, and you know it," I exclaimed, my fists clenching at my sides. "You've been spending time with him outside of practice. How can I trust you when I see you like this?" Her face hardened, and she quickly shifted her stance. "You're just jealous. You should be grateful that I'm putting in the effort to help your son succeed. You're making this all about you." It was like a tidal wave crashing down on me. The denial, the gaslighting, it made my head spin. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Instead of taking responsibility, she twisted the narrative to make me seem like the villain. It was infuriating, and I felt my blood pressure rise. Once again, I was left feeling cold and alone despite the warmth of the house around me. I wanted to scream, to make her understand how betrayed I felt, but deep down, I knew that anger alone wouldn't solve anything. I needed proof, something undeniable that would force her to face the truth. That night I lay awake, my mind racing with ideas. I couldn't allow myself to be a passive victim in this situation. I thought about collecting evidence, screenshots of texts, possibly recording interactions between Sarah and Kyle. It wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming the truth of our relationship. I felt like a chess player mapping out my next move, preparing to checkmate her lies. Jason was my anchor in all of this. I didn't want to hurt him, but I also needed to protect him from the chaos brewing in our home. I decided I would be strategic about my next steps. I started making plans to confront Sarah directly and to gather as much information as I could. I wanted to expose her affair, not just for the sake of revenge, but to ensure that I could stand strong in whatever decision lay ahead. In the following days, I began to watch her closely, documenting everything. I took notes of the time she was with Kyle, the various excuses she made, and the ways she tried to manipulate the truth. I felt like I was caught in a twisted game of cat and mouse, and I wasn't going to let myself be the mouse anymore. My resolve grew stronger with each day. I was ready to fight back, to reclaim my dignity, and to protect my son from the fallout of his mother's choices. But little did I know, the game had just begun, and the fallout would be far more explosive than I ever imagined. As the days went by, I continued my covert operation to uncover the truth about Sarah and Kyle. I became more vigilant, taking copious notes and compiling evidence. I'd leave the house early, pretending to go to the gym, just to see if I could catch them in the act. The more I dug, the more I found myself spiraling into a dark place, feeling betrayed by the woman I once adored. One Saturday morning, I decided to attend Jason's basketball practice, a decision I made in the hopes of gathering more information. I arrived a little early, watching the kids scramble onto the court, excited chatter filling the air. I positioned myself at a distance, partially hidden behind a pillar where I could observe without being seen. As the practice progressed, I noticed Sarah standing off to the side, talking animatedly with Kyle. He was leaning in closer, laughing at something she said. I could feel the anger bubbling inside me again as I watched their body language. It was more than just friendly. There was an intimacy in their gestures that felt like a punch to my gut. I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to confront her, but I also knew I had to be smart about it. Just as I was about to approach them, one of the other parents, Karen, caught my eye. She'd been a friend for years, someone I trusted. As she walked over to me, I could see her face was serious. "Hey, can we talk for a second? It's important," she said, glancing nervously towards Sarah and Kyle. I followed her to a quieter corner. "What's going on?" I asked, already sensing that whatever she had to say was going to be heavy. "Look, I've been meaning to tell you something. I didn't want to get involved, but I can't just watch this happen anymore. I've seen Sarah and Kyle together and it doesn't look good. It's not just friendly coaching. I've seen the way they look at each other." She said, her eyes wide with concern. My heart raced. "I know. I've been noticing things too. I'm gathering evidence. It's clear something is going on between them," I replied, feeling a strange mix of relief and outrage. At least I wasn't imagining things. I wasn't alone in this. Karen nodded, her expression serious. "I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to hurt you or Jason, but it's been going on for months, maybe longer. I think you deserve to know, and I think you need to confront her." "I will," I promised, my determination growing stronger. "Thanks for telling me. I need to gather more evidence and then I'll confront her. It's time for the truth to come out." After practice, I headed home, my mind whirling with the new information. I was ready to piece everything together and finally confront Sarah once and for all. I felt a sense of purpose, like I was finally taking control of a situation that had spiraled out of my hands. That evening, as we sat down for dinner, I decided the time had come to confront her. I needed her to understand that I wasn't going to be a doormat, that I wouldn't let her lies and deceit destroy our family. My stomach churned with a mix of anxiety and resolve as I cleared my throat. "Sarah, we need to talk." I started, trying to keep my voice steady. The tension in the air was palpable. "About what now?" she asked, irritation creeping into her tone. She was clearly annoyed, but I pressed on. "I know about you and Kyle. I've seen you together, and I've heard from other parents that it's more than just friendship. This isn't just jealousy, it's betrayal," I said, locking eyes with her, refusing to back down. Her reaction was immediate. "You're out of your mind, this is ridiculous, and you're acting like a child." She shot back defensively, crossing her arms. "Childish, you're the one who's been lying to me for months. I've got evidence, Sarah. I didn't just jump to conclusion. I've been watching and I know what's going on," I said, feeling the heat rise in my chest. "Oh, come on, this is all in your head. You're making something out of nothing. Kyle is just a coach. I thought you would want me to support our son's team." She spat back, her eyes narrowing. "Support, is that what you call it? Because it looks a lot like something else to me," I pressed, unable to restrain my anger any longer. "How can you stand there and deny it?" She hesitated for a moment, her bravado faltering. "Fine, so maybe I enjoy talking to him. What's the big deal? You never listen to me. You're always so busy with work or your own interests. It's nice to have someone who actually pays attention." That hit hard. I felt a wave of sadness wash over me, realizing how deeply disconnected we had become. It wasn't just about the affair. It was about the emptiness in our marriage that had allowed this to happen. I'm busy because I'm trying to provide for our family, Sarah. This isn't just about you. You think you can just brush this off and blame me for your choices. My voice cracked with emotion. We stood there in silence, the weight of our exchange hanging heavy in the air. I could see the cracks in her facade, the guilt hidden beneath her anger. It was a moment of truth, one that could shatter our lives or lead to a path of healing. Finally, I broke the silence. I can't do this anymore. I can't live with someone who lies to me and betrays my trust. I need to figure out if this is something we can fix or if it's time to move on. Her expression shifted, a flicker of vulnerability crossing her face. You really want to throw everything away over this? Can't we just work on it? I shook my head, feeling my heart break. I don't know if I can trust you anymore, Sarah. You've crossed a line and I need time to think. That was the moment everything changed. I felt a mix of relief and despair, knowing that no matter what happened next, our lives would never be the same. I needed to take a step back to reassess everything. I needed to prepare for whatever came next, whether it was fighting for our marriage or moving forward without her. The emotional turmoil was overwhelming, and I knew I had to gather my strength for the storm that lay ahead. After that confrontation, I spent the next few days in a haze of confusion and anger. Sarah seemed to be in denial, trying to act as if everything was normal. She'd come home, make dinner, and chat about mundane daily events as if our explosive conversation hadn't just happened. But I couldn't pretend. It felt like there was an invisible wall between us, and every attempt at normalcy felt forced and hollow. I took time off work, needing space to process everything that had unraveled. It was a strange feeling, being home when I should have been at the office. I found myself wandering around the house, reflecting on memories of us, moments that now felt tainted by betrayal. I looked through old photo albums, desperately trying to recall the love that had once filled our home. Jason had no idea what was going on, and I was determined to keep it that way. He was just a kid, and I didn't want him to bear the weight of our crumbling marriage. Every time I saw him, my heart tightened at the thought that his mother might be ruining everything we had built. I was his father, his protector, and I felt like I was failing him. One afternoon, while Jason was at a friend's house, I decided to confront Sarah again. This time I needed clarity not just for myself but for our son. I needed to know if there was any hope left for us. I found her sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone, seemingly unfazed by everything that had transpired. "Sarah, we need to talk again," I said firmly, my resolve hardened by the uncertainty that had plagued me for days. She sighed, rolling her eyes. "What now?" "I thought we were done fighting." "No, we're not done. I need to know if you're willing to do whatever it takes to work on our marriage, because if this is just going to be a charade, I can't keep pretending." Her expression shifted slightly, and I could see the uncertainty flicker in her eyes. "I don't understand why you can't just let this go. It's not like I cheated on you. I made a mistake, but it doesn't define our entire relationship." "Not define it. This isn't just a mistake, Sarah. It's a breach of trust, and it feels like you've chosen him over us. Do you understand how that feels?" I was losing my patience and the frustration boiled over again. "I never meant to hurt you. Kyle made me feel special, something I haven't felt in a long time. You've been so wrapped up in work and everything else that I felt invisible." She shot back defensively. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "And that's where we need to start. We can't keep blaming each other. We need to figure out why we drifted apart in the first place. But if you're still focused on him, then this is a waste of time." "I'm not with him like that anymore," she said, her voice dropping, the fight seeming to leave her. "I swear it was just emotional. I didn't go to bed with him or anything." "Emotional, that's just as bad in my eyes. You let it go too far. You should have come to me with this, not him." I felt my heart racing, but I knew I had to control my anger. "I know, okay, I messed up," she admitted, her voice shaking slightly. "But what do you want from me? I can't change the past. Just tell me what you want and I'll do it." I paused, contemplating everything. "I want honesty. I want to know that you're committed to fixing this. I need to see that you're willing to put in the work. We both need to be in this together or there's no point." "What about counseling?" she suggested, her tone softening. Maybe we can get some help. I'm willing to try. That suggestion hung between us, and I could see the glimmer of hope in her eyes. I'll do that. But I need time to process everything, Sarah. Trust isn't built overnight, and I need to see efforts beyond just talk. She nodded, her expression earnest. I'll do whatever it takes. I just don't want to lose you or Jason. I'll try harder, I promise. That night, I felt a flicker of cautious optimism. It was a small step, but it felt like we were finally addressing the elephant in the room. I needed to see genuine change from her, and perhaps, with time and effort, we could heal the wounds that had festered. As the next few weeks went by, we started attending couples counseling. The sessions were a mix of raw emotion and difficult conversations. We cried, yelled, and even laughed at some points. We were unpacking years of unspoken grievances and misunderstandings that had accumulated like dust in the corners of our marriage. I learned a lot during those sessions. I realized that my workaholic tendencies had created a gap between us. I wasn't intentionally neglecting her, but my focus on providing for our family left her feeling alone and unappreciated. In turn, she had sought validation in someone else, and while I could understand her perspective, it didn't excuse the choices she had made. With each session, I felt the weight of my anger slowly begin to lift. It was still there, simmering beneath the surface, but the shared vulnerability began to create a new foundation. We started to communicate more openly, sharing feelings that had previously gone unexpressed. It was exhausting and painful, but it was a necessary step toward rebuilding trust. I watched Sarah genuinely work to change, to be more present and engaged. She took extra steps to show affection, whether it was a simple touch while we were watching TV or a heartfelt note left on the kitchen counter. I appreciated the effort, but the nagging doubt of her past choices lingered in my mind. The hardest part was dealing with Jason's oblivion to everything. I saw him every day, smiling, playing basketball with friends, and laughing. I wanted to protect him from the chaos swirling around his parents, but I also knew we owed it to him to be honest if it came to that. One evening, after a long day of counseling and heart-to-heart conversations, I found myself sitting on the couch, contemplating everything that had happened. I didn't know if we'd ever fully repair the damage, but I knew that as long as both of us were willing to fight for our family, there was a chance. I closed my eyes, feeling the exhaustion wash over me. It was a long road ahead, and while I could see the flicker of hope, I also understood that healing takes time. For now, I would focus on rebuilding, on finding a new rhythm for myself and for Jason. But even so, the lingering temptation of revenge still whispered in the back of my mind. I had to remind myself that while it felt good to think of exposing Sarah's affair, turning to revenge would only further complicate everything. I wanted to heal, to move past this, even if that meant letting go of the darkness that had crept into our lives. I needed to focus on what was in front of me, on the real work of mending our family, rather than seeking out ways to hurt those who had wronged me. However, as I lay there, a thought crossed my mind. While I was busy trying to navigate the complexities of our relationship, what if Kyle wasn't done yet? What if his presence lingered as a constant threat to our family? As much as I wanted to let go of my resentment, I understood that I might need to keep my guard up. The story was far from over, and I had to be ready for whatever came next, whether from Sarah or the man who had tried to steal her away. As the weeks turned into months, the journey of healing became both a blessing and a burden. Sarah and I were working on our marriage, and while it often felt like we were taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back, there was a flicker of hope brightening the path ahead. We were getting better at communicating, addressing our issues head-on and learning to reconnect. But deep down, I remained haunted by the specter of Kyle. Despite our attempts at reconciliation, I couldn't shake the feeling that he was still lurking in the shadows, ready to pounce on any weakness. I had seen how easily Sarah had fallen for his charm once, and I was terrified of the idea that she might let it happen again. I felt the need to keep an eye on her, to ensure that Kyle wouldn't have any opportunity to slip back into her life. The nagging fear made me restless. One evening, As I was scrolling through social media while Sarah was out running errands, I stumbled upon an event that sent my heart racing. The basketball team had been invited to a local sports bar for a celebratory dinner after an impressive season. The invitation included parents, coaches, and of course, the players. I quickly scanned the guest list and saw that Kyle was listed. My pulse quickened. Sarah would undoubtedly attend. After all, she had been so supportive of the team since the beginning, and I knew she would want to celebrate Jason's success. But the idea of her spending an entire evening with Kyle sent my mind spiraling. I couldn't allow her to be in a position where temptation could rear its ugly head again. I decided to take action. I could use this opportunity to confront Kyle directly. I wanted him to understand that I was aware of his manipulations and that I wouldn't tolerate any more of it. My emotions ran high as I envisioned the confrontation playing out, but I knew that I had to approach this with caution. I couldn't allow myself to act out of pure rage. I needed to be smarter than that. The night of the celebration, I dressed casually but purposefully. I wanted to blend in but also look like a father who belonged there. I arrived at the sports bar early, claiming a corner booth where I could observe the room without being noticed. As I waited, I felt a mix of adrenaline and apprehension. This was it. I was finally going to confront the man who had threatened my family. As the parents started arriving, I watched the interactions, noting the dynamics. Parents were mingling, kids were laughing, and the atmosphere was celebratory. But my focus was solely on finding Sarah and Kyle. After a few minutes, I spotted them across the room. Kyle was laughing at something Sarah had said, his hand resting casually on her back. I clenched my fists, feeling the familiar surge of anger rise up within me. At that moment, I decided to make my move. I strode across the room, my heart pounding in my chest. I needed to remain calm, but the sight of them together ignited a fire within me. I approached, and as I got closer, I could see Sarah's face light up when she spotted me. "Hey, I didn't know you were coming," she exclaimed, her smile genuine but nervous. I looked at her, then turned my gaze to Kyle. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steady but firm. Kyle raised an eyebrow, a smirk playing on his lips as he leaned back slightly. "About what? We're all here to celebrate, right?" "No, this is serious. We need to have a conversation." Now, I insisted, the tension palpable. "Let's step outside," Sarah suggested, her voice tentative. As she sensed the rising stakes, we moved to a quieter area outside the bar, the noise of the celebration fading into the background. I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on me, and I knew I had to be direct. "Listen, Kyle, I'm done playing games. I know what happened between you and Sarah. You've crossed a line, and I won't let you jeopardize my family again," I said, glaring at him with all the intensity I could muster. He feigned innocence, raising his hands as if to ward off any confrontation. "Come on, man. It was never like that. It was all just coaching, nothing more." "Don't lie to me," I snapped, feeling the anger bubbling over. "I've seen the way you look at her. You think I'm an idiot. You think I'll let you worm your way into our lives again. You better stay away from my wife." Sarah stood between us, her expression a mix of confusion and hurt. "This isn't helping anything. Kyle is not the enemy here. I'm the one who messed up." "Maybe not, but you opened the door, Sarah, and he walked right in." "I won't let that happen again," I shot back, trying to keep my voice steady despite the emotions swirling within me. Kyle stepped into the fray. "We can all be adults about this, right? I'm just here for the kids," I cut him off. "This isn't about the kids right now. This is about you and your actions. I need you to back off and stay away from my family. If you don't, I will make sure that everyone knows exactly what kind of coach you are." He scoffed, trying to play it cool. "You think you can threaten me? I'm just doing my job. If Sarah wants me on the team, it's not my fault if she enjoys my coaching." "That's where you're wrong," I said, leaning closer and lowering my voice. "She's my wife. I have every right to protect my family. So you need to stop whatever you're doing, or I will make this very public, understand?" Kyle's expression shifted, and for a moment I could see the facade of confidence crack. "Fine, I get it. I'll back off." "Good," I said, straightening up. I turned to Sarah, who looked crushed. "Let's go home." The ride home was silent. Sarah didn't say a word, and I could feel the weight of the unspoken tension hanging heavily in the air. I wanted to scream to let all my frustrations out, but I knew this was a complicated situation that required careful navigation. When we arrived, I turned to her. "We need to talk about this. I can't keep doing this dance. You need to make a choice, and it has to be me and Jason." "I don't want to lose you," she whispered, tears brimming in her eyes. "I know I messed up, but I'm trying. I need to see that you're committed to this, Sarah. I can't keep worrying about him. If you really want this marriage to work, you have to prove it." "I will," she said, her voice shaking. "I'll do whatever it takes. I just need you to trust me." Trust. It was a fragile thing that I wasn't sure I could give. But in that moment, I realized that rebuilding wouldn't work if I held on to my anger. I needed to let her prove herself, but I also needed to keep my guard up. As I lay in bed that night, I understood that the battle was far from over. While I had stood my ground against Kyle, the real challenge lay ahead, rebuilding the trust that had been shattered, navigating the complexities of our marriage, and protecting my son from the turmoil. I had taken a stand, but the emotional journey was only beginning. I needed to find a way to heal and to protect my family, and I hoped that in the process, I would find a way to forgive, not just Sarah, but myself for allowing our lives to spiral out of control. The struggle was real, and the stakes were high, but for Jason's sake, I had to keep fighting. Little did I know that the real test was just around the corner, and the decisions I made in the coming weeks would alter the course of our family forever. As the days turned into weeks following my confrontation with Kyle, the atmosphere in our home slowly transformed. I had taken a stand, asserting my boundaries, and I felt a newfound strength coursing through me. Yet the journey ahead felt daunting. Sarah seemed earnest in her efforts to change, but the shadows of doubt still loomed over our relationship. The lingering presence of Kyle and the fear of his influence weighed heavily on my mind. We continued attending couples counseling, and while the sessions were often emotional, they also provided a safe space for us to unpack our feelings. Sarah opened up about her insecurities, how she felt neglected, how my long hours at work had left her yearning for connection. I realized how blind I had been to her struggles, and it stung. I had been so focused on providing for our family that I had overlooked the emotional needs of my wife. One night, while we were sitting on the couch, Sarah spoke up. "I know I can't change the past, but I want to rebuild your trust. I want to be the partner you deserve," she said, her eyes pleading for understanding. I nodded, feeling a mixture of hope and wariness. "I want that too, Sarah, but it's going to take time. I need to see consistency and honesty from you. Trust isn't a switch we can just flip back on." She agreed, and we began to put the work in. Simple gestures became meaningful. She would text me during the day just to check in, or bring me coffee in bed, little reminders that she was still committed to us. I tried to be more present at home, making an effort to listen and engage with her. It felt like we were learning to communicate all over again. But even with these positive changes, I couldn't shake the feeling that Kyle's shadow still loomed. I decided to keep a watchful eye, not just for Sarah's sake, but for my own peace of mind. I didn't want to become paranoid, but I felt I had to protect my family from the man who had threatened to destroy us. Then one fateful evening, everything came to a head. I was at home with Jason while Sarah was out at a team meeting. I was trying to focus on grading papers for my students, but my mind was elsewhere, still simmering with thoughts of Kyle. I felt a twinge of anxiety as I glanced at the clock. Sarah should have been home by now. At that moment, my phone buzzed with an incoming text. It was a message from Karen, the parent who had first alerted me about Sarah and Kyle. "Hey, I just saw Kyle at the bar with a couple of players. It didn't look like a team meeting, just wanted to give you a heads up." My heart sank. I felt a rush of adrenaline as I texted back, "Is Sarah there? Couldn't tell, I only saw him, just thought you should know." I quickly texted Sarah, "Where are you?" Still no response. My anxiety morphed into a knot of anger and dread. I decided I couldn't sit idly by. I grabbed my keys and headed out. When I arrived at the bar, I scanned the crowd, searching for any sign of Sarah. I spotted Kyle laughing with a group of kids, but no sign of her. My heart began to race. What was she doing here? Just as I turned to leave, I heard her voice. "Come on, Kyle, just one more drink." I froze at the entrance, my heart pounding in my chest. I felt a sudden wave of nausea wash over me. I pushed through the crowd, my anger surging. There she was, leaning into Kyle, laughter spilling from her lips. It felt like a dagger through my heart. "Sarah," I shouted, my voice cutting through the noise. She turned, eyes wide with shock. "What are you doing here? Really, you do know?" I snapped, anger boiling over. "I was told this was a team meeting. You said you were working late." Kyle straightened up, his smug expression faltering as I stepped closer to them. "Hey man, it's not what it looks like," he said, but I wasn't having any of it. "Shut up, Kyle. You've got no business being here with my wife," I shouted, my voice trembling with emotion. Sarah looked between us, confusion and fear etched on her face. "I swear I didn't plan this. It was supposed to be a quick meeting. Quick meeting or not, you crossed a line." I turned back to Kyle. "I told you to stay away from her." He raised his hands defensively. "Look, we were celebrating the season's end. I didn't think." "Of course you didn't think. You never do." I cut him off, my heart racing. I could feel the eyes of the crowd on us, the tension palpable. "Let's go, Sarah," I said, my voice low but firm. I grabbed her arm gently, pulling her away from Kyle. She didn't resist. Outside, I felt a whirlwind of emotions, anger, betrayal, sorrow, but most of all, I felt a deep-rooted sense of betrayal. "You said you were trying, Sarah. You said you wanted to rebuild trust." I could barely hold back the hurt that flooded my voice. "I'm sorry, I didn't plan this. I thought it was just a team thing. I wasn't trying to hide anything from you." "Then why not tell me? Why lie?" I asked, my voice shaking. "I didn't think it would be like this. I thought I could prove to you that I was committed. I swear I'm trying." Standing there, I felt my heart breaking into a million pieces. I had fought so hard to rebuild this marriage, to trust her again, and it felt like she had shattered it all in an instant. "I can't keep doing this, Sarah. I need to know if you're all in or if you're still playing games." "I'm all in. I want us. I don't want to lose you," she pleaded, tears streaming down her face. "But how can I believe that when you keep putting yourself in these situations?" I felt the weight of the world crashing down on me. In that moment, I realized I had a choice to make. I could either let this define us, let the betrayal consume me, or I could take a step back and reevaluate what I truly wanted. I looked at Sarah, seeing the pain in her eyes, the genuine regret and fear of losing her family. "I need space," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I can't keep trying to rebuild when I feel like I can't trust you. Please, don't say that," she cried out, her voice breaking. "I need time to think about everything," I told her, my heart heavy. "You need to show me that you're willing to fight for this for us." As I drove home that night, I felt a storm of emotions raging inside me. I wasn't certain what the future held, but I knew that I couldn't continue down this path of uncertainty. I needed to focus on healing, whether that meant staying together or moving apart. In the days that followed, I took a step back to gather my thoughts. I spent time with Jason, focusing on being the father he needed, while also allowing myself to process the emotional turmoil I was feeling. I sought guidance from friends, weighing my options, contemplating what was best for my son and myself. Sarah reached out to me multiple times, expressing her commitment to change. I appreciated her efforts, but I also knew that it would take more than words to rebuild our foundation. Eventually, I decided to speak with her again. I wanted to set clear boundaries and expectations for our future. I wanted her to understand that while I was willing to work on our marriage, it would take time, mutual respect, and above all, honesty. When we met, I laid out my expectations. "I want us to be transparent with each other. No more secrets, no more lies. And if you want to keep Kyle out of our lives, you need to take a stand. It's not just about us, it's about Jason and our family," I said, looking her in the eye. Tears filled her eyes as she nodded. "I understand. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll talk to Kyle and I'll make sure he knows it's over." As I looked at her, I felt the flicker of hope rekindle in my chest. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was willing to give it another chance. In the months that followed, we embarked on a journey of healing together. It was challenging, and there were days when the weight of the past felt unbearable. But we were committed to rebuilding our lives, one brick at a time. I learned to be more present for Sarah and to encourage her in her efforts to reconnect with me. We sought couples counseling regularly, and gradually, the cracks in our relationship began to heal. I also found solace in personal growth, understanding that I needed to nurture my own emotional well-being. I started focusing on myself, pursuing hobbies I had neglected, and finding joy outside of my role as a husband and father. Through it all, I learned that love is not just about the absence of betrayal, but the presence of commitment, honesty, and resilience. I began to realize that while the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, facing them together was the only way we could truly rebuild our lives. As I stood with Sarah one evening watching Jason play basketball, I felt a sense of gratitude. This was a second chance, not just for our marriage, but for our family. We had faced adversity, and while it had tested us, it also brought us closer together. In that moment, I understood that while the scars of betrayal would always remain, they wouldn't define us. We were moving forward, stronger and more united than ever before. The journey was just beginning, and I was ready to embrace whatever came next, armed with the lessons learned from our past.